Hey everyone, this is Tom, and this week's character is Ariel, or Bookie, for Sierra. It's been a couple weeks since I've done one of these, so I'm a little bit out of sorts. So let's hopefully, I'm gonna try my best to do a good job and try to get back into the swing of things. So we'll probably see how that goes. But anyway, Sierra has been playing for a long time, it's one of my favorite things when somebody who's been participating in the lottery for quite a while finally gets to win, and it's not even cheating, and that's really cool. So I was happy to finally be able to do something for her. This ended up being quite a fun character, quite a challenging one, but going on with the weird patterns that I always seem to recognize, or this one, I guess it's not really a pattern because it's been a while and everything, but the last creature that I did was a dog, like a dog human thing. This time it's a cat human thing, and yeah, it's really not a pattern at all, actually. Never mind. But I always really like doing the more creaturely stuff. Not that I'm not like asking for it, but it is a nice change of pace, especially if you end up getting stuck drawing too many humans and half elves, which is not bad either. But I mean, I rant about that a lot, but yeah, it's a nice change of pace. As far as that goes, one thing I went into thinking about this time was the last character I did was a goblin, and I didn't bother with any sort of thin bones or anything. And this one I wanted to just be consciously aware of having a thinner, lighter, livelier bone structure based on, or just based on the fact of what she is and what her size is. She's 3.5 feet tall. So she's she's like a strange sort of feline kind of creature. And cats already do have thin, light bones, and it was good to just try to focus on that and think of that. And now that I'm looking at it now, they're definitely basically human bone thickness, but based on how I usually draw, which is I think I usually draw them thicker, but yeah, it's something to be aware of, because even starting from that base sort of layer, the skeletal layer, anything like once you sort of set that depth, I mean, this isn't really advice because I doubt many people will do work this way with drawing bones and things, but if you're going to be actually drawing a skeleton, and not just a stick man, but an actual skeleton, and then building off of that, then you'll definitely need to be aware of setting proportions and size of things from the get-go, because every little extra layer that goes on, whether it's ligaments or muscles or skin or fat or fabric, everything starts to level up quite a bit, and it can get out of hand as far as thickness goes, because you might be imagining drawing like a lithe cat creature or a naiad or some sort of like svelte female elf character that you want to have, that you're in your mind you're picturing being very thin and lithe and whatever, but if you it'd be so easy to accidentally overdo it, and even though it might be anatomically correct, it just sort of betrays the look that you were going for. So be mindful of that if you're gonna go this route. Even like a little bit of if you want a sense of how quickly a thin layer of something can pad something out, just put on if you have a hoodie that just fits, and you put it on, and then you put on a t-shirt, and then put the hoodie back on, or maybe like 2 t-shirts, just to kind of help me make my point better and not look like a moron. Then you'll even realize just how quickly just even one t-shirt can make that hoodie snug up quite a bit. It's just me. That's a minor thing. You don't really have to be thinking about that too much when it comes to drawing and art and everything, but it is good to be aware of. The skeletal structure I would say it is being just absolutely very critical, as far as just one of the things that any artist drawing figures is just really should try to know. And not just human animals, or not just human skeletons, but animals and creatures and dinosaurs and whatever sort of bone structure you can think of. Even like looking at how other artists who are a bit more biologically minded might depict things. Terrell Whitlatch is one of my creature design like gurus, I guess, master role models as far as anatomical fidelity and implementation of adaptations and evolutionary processes that help make the deciding factor in how creatures are formed. And even though she can design something that's super bizarre and out of this world, it still has that structural the structural requirements are met, and that's really inspiring. As far as editing the face to make it a bit more creaturely, in the last character that was sort of an animal hybrid, it was the dog one. She was described as essentially looking like her. She had the head of a white Labrador Retriever, essentially. And so as far as that goes, it was a matter of just drawing that. But in the case of Bookie, she's hybridized in some way, and Sierra included some photos and illustrations of faces and characters that were along the lines of what she had in mind, and sort of how the feline and human traits mixed. And I took those to heart, and I kept them and made sure that I understood what she was talking about. But as far as hybridizing the human and the feline anatomy, I didn't worry too much about it at the anatomical level, though I did look, or at the muscular level, but I did look at the leg muscles especially, because that's the most different part. But yeah, the skull essentially is really the most noticeable part as far as how different it is. But it's wider, it's the larger orbits, the eye sockets, the shape of the nose and the bridge of the nose, and it's basically just trying to find that balance of human and cat just right down the middle. Mostly human. She is described as being mostly like more along the human side, but anything that would just punch out the size of her eyes and the cattiness of her eyes. So just planting those within a large orbit there will change the entire appearance of the face once I get going. I guess other things too. The one thing that always makes me, or that I try to focus on when doing digitigrade characters, that is like characters that walk up on their toes, like on dog legs or cat legs, or kind of like gargoyles, like the old cartoon show. To me, the things that I pay most attention to are the knees, the feet, and the pelvis and hips. I guess it basically. The moving parts is what I like to pay attention to most. If they are derived from an animal that exists, I obviously look to those animals. Or if they're not based on a particular animal, but they have a certain sort of behavior or environment or niche that they fill, then I'll try to think of whatever sort of animal would most closely equate to that, and sort of see how their limbs are adapted. Usually the biggest part is the knee joint. Some things have patellas, the kneecap, others don't. The kneecap plays an important role. It has to do with leverage and the ligaments that attach the muscles on the top of the thigh, the quads, and and those being able to pull the leg forward from your knee down, and basically the lower half of your leg forward, and that'll affect the motility, but that also affects the way that the odds of the leg looks from the front, because it's not enough to just have like a human leg that's bent. It just, sure, it'll work. No one's gonna. Not many people are going to call you out on it, but I think it's that extra bit of fidelity that would make somebody interesting as an artist, and it would make the end result of their efforts have all that more significance and value, I think, artistically. But anyway, as like examples, like cats I found, at least the reference the skeleton I was looking at had kneecaps. I'm pretty sure they've got kneecaps. It's been so long, but a really strange sort of knee joint is kangaroos, and I wasn't basing that off. I wasn't basing that Bookie's knees on that, but I think they're a really good example of showing how strange a knee joint can be. And then when you see how it compares to a kangaroo leg and how it can affect the outmost appearance of it, it's quite striking. And it's like it's visibly a stronger joint, more rigid, but definitely stronger. But it's that kind of cue or detail that I think artists should look for. And it doesn't have to just be like a one-to-one ripoff, but it's a perfect nature is a perfect grounding for any sort of imaginative creature, or no matter how imaginative or inventive it is. Nature is a great place to look and see how things have been done. Nature and history. It's been a long time since I've talked about nature and history as being the best sources of inspiration. Nature, for obvious reasons, it's really largely unpredictable, and it's just amazing to see how many different forms, like structures and plants and then creatures and clouds and planets and things can all the different amazing iterations that can exist, and just based on what works. Like the fact that you can have sea urchins and hamsters living in the same world is quite striking. But everybody appreciates nature in their own way, or for their own reasons. But history is another thing that is one of the better places to look, if not the best. Nature, I always say nature and history, but it's based on the fact that if you're and you've probably heard me go off on this rant before, but the past is, I mean, we can learn about it, we know about it, but the world that people used to live in the past in large ways is so different that it may as well have been a fictional story. And when you have a fictional story, you want it to be believable, you want it to be relatable. So looking at how, if you have a setting and a location and cultures and characters with beliefs and lifestyles and occupations and what have you, there's going to be a part in, because of like the range of cultures and locations that humans have lived and gone through, that exist. I mean, you're going to have a hard time coming up with a fictional location that would be much different than something that's existed on Earth. So if you're looking at real humans who have been as intelligent as humans are, and how they've solved problems from living in certain places and under certain conditions, whether it's physical or political or economic or whatever, you're going to be able to see how intelligent beings solve problems, what materials they use, what sort of shortcuts they take, what sort of manufacturing processes they were capable of, what levels of refinement. And that gives you a texture, it gives you a patina to your work, it gives you much more direction, it gives you the ability to work, to start trudging along in one direction, and to even just to start, just to have some idea or some sort of assumption or judgment to go off of right from the get-go that you can then develop. Like, you're not going to have the best idea right off the bat. That doesn't happen. At least I'm sure it's happened a few times. But even if you have even just like an idea of what to look up, even that can be enough. But yeah, that's that's me trying to restate a rant that I like to go on in a way that I haven't said, so that it's sort of newish. But yeah, nature and history should be I recommend an artist's source of inspiration if you're going to be into concept art and such things. Bookie was another character where I just got kind of, I don't want to say like panicky. I was never in a bad mood when I was working on it, but it was another one of those things where like I feel like I strayed too much from sort of the techniques that I've been developing, or I don't know. Oh, excuse me. But there's a lot of different parts that took some back and forth and just trying things out, seeing what didn't work, reminding myself of what did. Actually, this was one of the times, and I remember explaining it to my wife how it happened, but I don't remember the explicit details. But I remember the thing. I don't remember which one it was, but me even following through with this piece only happened because I took my own advice, and it kind of made me feel pretty good. Where I talk a big game about not giving up and trying hard and persevering and banging your head on a wall until it breaks, not your head but the wall, and that happened on this one, where there were so many times where I did want to give up and I was just like, this is too tough and it's just too much of a hassle right now. I don't want to work and nothing's working and I'm just gonna give up. But it was one of those times when, like, I've just thought of advice that I've given in the past of just keep trying it out, try different things, tweak this, pull that. Don't be afraid to give up on this or that, and it worked, and it was really nice, and it was just kind of cool to know that I'm not always talking out of my butt, and that I thought that was really cool. It ended up, my own advice wound up helping me, and I kind of got a kick out of that. But I've noticed in the last few I've sort of strayed from a process or something snapped, and I start to forget how to do things. But I'm going to be working on that. I'm going to try out I'm going to try out 2 different things in the future. I'm going to start hopefully doing some wild, or like some more exploration as far as approaches, or things that are as different from the norm as I can, which, now that I'm saying it, is scary. Or I'm going to try to just do things as by the books and sort of as pragmatically as I've come to find works through doing these videos. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. I think, especially after this one and the last one, I think I've definitely fallen much more in love with the idea of starting over, or just letting rip and just pouring a bucket of white paint on it or on huge chunks and just letting myself just go. It was definitely with this one. It was just really a matter of keeping on going. I felt once working on the face, there was a couple times when I felt pretty good about it, but it wasn't until I first started doing this fabric down between her legs when I sort of saw that it could work, and that wouldn't have happened if I had given up when I wanted to. Not that I would give up, I would still get it done, but I was running out of time and I wanted to take a lot of breaks, and but I knew that I was running out of time, so I couldn't do it. But so hopefully, if you have seen these videos before, or you are listening to me for the first time and you don't believe me, well, you should try it out, because I believed me and it worked out really good, and I was happy that it worked. So don't worry about that. Sierra didn't give me too much information about Bookie here, so I may as well go through it while we're watching this get rendered out. Now, I am considering maybe shortening the videos just because of this rendering stage. Let me know what your opinion of that is, if you prefer the 60-minute version, or if you would rather I just sort of hurry up through the rendering stuff, just because I don't know how interesting it is. I feel it might seem kind of samey to people. So yeah, let me know how what you think. Anyway, okay, so this is for. Okay, my character is a 22-year-old female urban catfolk with a link to the 5th edition race description on the D&D wiki. Her name is Ariel, or Bookie, as she was jokingly, lovingly nicknamed. Ariel is only 3 foot 6 inches tall and 88 pounds. More on that later. She has sapphire blue eyes, white hair, and pale skin. She looks more human than feline, however. However, she still has cat ears, a tail, and a bright pink kitten nose. Ariel wears loose-fitting robes of the desert fashion and a hijab to hide her feline features or block the sand. She always wears a blue crystal ring. Crap, I forgot the ring. Oh, dang it, okay. Well, I'm going to have to update that and send that back to Sierra. Oh, boy. See, that was me. I guess I was just in too much of a tizzy. Okay, I got to make a note of that. I had the ring. Yeah, she always wears a blue crystal ring, which is her arcane focus. She always has her spell book, a book of lore, 2 daggers strapped to her ankles, writing materials, a personalized magnifying glass, and a diary left by her mother that is missing pages and is half written in a language that Ariel doesn't understand. Here's a link to some reference photos that I use as inspiration for Ariel's look, with a link to Google Drive. Her father, Aramis, owns a popular local bookshop in their home city of Redvale. Redvale is a city on the edge of the desert and a vast river met by a mountain range. Ariel spends most of her time either helping around the store or reading every book in stock. Ariel is a divination wizard, seeking as much knowledge as she can from the world. She can speak, read, write Common, Feline, Elvish, and Dwarvish. Ariel is never satisfied with what she knows and is always seeking more information, even if it is just gossip about other people. She loves to know what makes people tick and how things work. She first discovered magic when her mother, Tounces, met with a mysterious client. That fateful meeting ended with Tounces being arrested for possessing a black market magic item. However, Ariel had already read through the spells in her curious manner. To this day, Ariel is seeking the man who had her mother arrested to seek answers and potentially to get even. Ariel is neutral good and has a generally welcoming yet curious atmosphere about her. Her stats are as follows: Strength 8, Dexterity 12, Constitution 14, Intelligence 18, Wisdom 13, Charisma 12. Those are some sweet stats. And so that's it. I mentioned a note earlier that she described as... This part actually sort of threw me for a loop. The 3'6" and 88 pounds. That seemed a bit heavy for someone that height and someone who's feline, because someone who sounds like they're supposed to be dexterous. And that would, on a BMI chart, that would land her in class 2, not diabetes, class 2 obesity, which is quite far in that direction. So I ran it by Sierra, since that's pretty uncommon. And no, she's supposed to be lithe and thin and everything, but it was good to know. It's nice to have those little details, especially when they have like charts and things, and it's sort of easy to not notice how heavy that can be. But no, if you ever do, excuse me, I've still got a dry and sore throat, but if you ever win and you send me your character and you describe their height and weight, I'm going to take that literally, just as a heads up. And yeah, 3'6" doesn't carry 88 pounds very well. Yeah, I thought that was sort of a fun little detail, a little bit of sleuth work on my part. Yeah, I can't believe I forgot the ring. I even made notes. Oh my goodness. Well, I'll make it right. You hear me, Sierra? I'll make it right. Okay, so yeah, of course, more rendering. Fabric is, I'd say fabric is the most time-consuming thing to render. For me, anyway. I guess, depending on what level of detail you could go, I'd probably think like a tree or a bush would probably be the most difficult thing. Um, but fabric is one of those things where it's really hard to fake, but it's also really hard to find good reference for. I've always really, really disliked artwork where you can tell that the artist just got their friend to come over, they wrapped a sheet around them, or they pulled out their tickle trunk and put together some sort of costume, and they just took a photo, and then the artist just kind of recreated the photo with some different colors in the light and whatever. And even when I was young, I never fell for it, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting reference. And I've always had fantasies of I once bought a digital camera with the intent, this is 10 years ago, with the intention of like, oh, I can use it for taking reference photos, and then my drawings will look better. But when it's too obvious, it's no good. And I find that you got to be very particular with your casting of real humans when doing when putting them into fictional work, especially fantasy, and sci-fi too, but mostly fantasy. It's very few people transfer into fantasy very well. There's some requirements, but yeah. So anyway, fabric is very hard to find really good reference for, and I would actually love to in the future at some point actually develop a tickle trunk. If you don't know what a tickle trunk is, it's a chest of costumes, and like little bits of paraphernalia and fabric and clothing items where you can put them on and play pretend and everything. But I mean, that would be fantastic, and fabrics with different thicknesses and weights, like if you have burlap and silk and linen and gossamer and whatever, denim, who knows, but that would be fantastic. But the next best thing, and actually this reminds me, somebody, I don't remember the name right now, I could look it up, but on my YouTube channel somebody asked me if they could forego still lives and not do still lives and not bother with still lives ever. And I answered them there, but I would answer here. I would say, yeah, you can forego them, but you should not. I guess that's kind of the same thing with all sorts of art. Is yeah, you can take shortcuts and you can avoid stuff, but you're only going to hurt yourself if you do that. You gotta take the long way before you can really appreciate the short way. There's that common phrase where you gotta fake it till you make it, and fabric especially, but as an artist, I think the opposite is true. As an illustrator, where you have to make it till you fake it, and it sucks. Believe me, it's still stimulating, it's still rewarding, and it can be enjoyable, and the payoff is there. But studies and research and not going out with friends so you can draw, these are all the golden ticket. But yeah, back to the still lives. Setting up fabric and painting that, or digitally, you can still just do still lives digitally if you can set up your computer, or if you have a powerful enough tablet that lets you do stuff that's not too bad. Fabric and things of different materials, even stuff that's interesting to you. I would love to start doing some still lives of stuff, because it's not even until now when actually it was until the last week when the person asked me the question, when I realized how awesome a still life would actually be and how beneficial they really are. The more I was thinking about it, because I had always dreaded them. I don't blame this person for asking me this. When I think of like the most boring thing to paint, it's flowers and like still lives with fruit and flowers. But I mean, I still wouldn't want to paint flowers, because to me that just seems too boring. But I know I could get into it if I started, but into just one. But when I was thinking about even fruit, at first I was like, no, fruit would be, I don't want to just paint fruit. I could paint anything else. But then I thought of fruit, like translucent stuff like grapes or even banana skin, I think, is slightly translucent. And just doing that would give me, if I could just sit there and look at a grape for like half an hour and paint it up, or like a couple bits of different types of fruit, I would learn so much about subsurface scattering and rendering textures and the way the color affects, or the lighting affects the color and the cast shadow. That's steroids to me. Like when I think about that, that's like human growth hormone for an artist. So if you're listening to this, I didn't even notice until last week. That like, yeah, still lives, get into them. I'm going to be, and I'm excited about it. Even just setting up whatever. But think about, if you think it's boring, think about. I mean, you could do stuff that's useful materials. Like if you do a lot of fantasy art, get some belts and some metal. If you have a knife, jam that into your table. And paint that, or some paper and candles and burn stuff, and even just like burn a log and put some ash, like put stuff that like almost like swatches of materials that you would build a fantasy world with, anything like that, or stuff that light interacts with differently. So it's not just a bunch of oranges and it's not just a bunch of blocks of wood, but you could have like some balsa wood with the sunlight coming through. You have some like highly polished Japanese furniture wood. You could have plastic, like a Transformers toy, some chrome, just like totally mix it up, because then it won't be as boring. But just that's like a cheat code. Like I can't believe no one ever explained it to me before. But just, yeah, still lives. It's like you get a bit of fabric, you get some marbles, you get some pewter if you have any. And you get, or if you like put your hand, if you have your hand there, you can draw your hand. And now I've got this character. If I knew what sort of material she was going to have, I could have set some stuff up and done some studies and been able to paint it a lot quicker and a lot better, just having a sense of that. No, it's not that you have to prepare like that for each thing and you're worthless without it. But by doing that, you would just build a library in your brain. You'd even develop just a natural instinct for color and lighting and form, and that'd be awesome. Yeah. So still lives, absolutely do still lives. Don't avoid them. It'd be awesome. And I even just realized now, like, humans and humanoid things are really tough to get used to. Really hard to draw. All the time. They never get easy. They get easier. But it's never just a giveaway. But if you're drawing still lives, you don't have to worry about drawing a human figure now. You're just learning all the stuff they can be made out of. So when you do come time to draw like a creature, or a human creature thing or something or whatever, you can make it out of anything. Like that's awesome. Oh, actually, if you don't want to like spare your hand, if you can get Sculpey, that would be a good simulation of skin. It doesn't like look like skin, but it does. It's got like the pinkish color, and it does the sort of subsurface scattering thing. It's a sculpting material. You can get it at craft stores, pretty sure. I can get it at mine. I go to Michael's, and they sell it at Michael's. It's a big chain in Canada. Now, as far as our costume goes, I haven't been going much into that lately, but I didn't want to pile her up with a bunch of books because she seemed too lithe for that. I think she'd rely too much on her agility to just have like books everywhere. So I'm assuming that she has them on her back in some regard. Actually, no. Well, yeah, in my mind, I'm picturing some in the back, but she also does have like a book bag. It might seem like a bit of a cop-out, but it's a practical solution. You know, she's not going to be carrying all of these books that were described, but so I put them mostly away in a bag with a pouch on her hip here that's vertical and sort of long and tubular to imply writing utensils inside. I didn't I picture somebody who is really into books and literature and writing and calligraphy and things, that they wouldn't have like pens and quills and styluses sort of like on a belt that can be snapped off and broken. I picture them having like even like some sort of pencil kit, or like they'd be contained, and I'd imagine inside that tube that there'd be like a thing that would unroll, and there'd be a cap end or something in there. As far as the so anyway, yeah, that's the thinking for that. Nothing even too like austere or fancy. Being sort of a like I don't know. I picture as far as her like her station in life. Her family is I mean they're middle class, so she'll have some nice stuff. She'll have some simpler stuff where it's sort of like it's not fancy, but it's quality. But it is still nice. So there's color, there's hues and rich dyes and things, but nothing too bright or over the top, and even not too. I mean, red is. I mean, she ends up being red. I haven't gotten to the coloring stage on the video yet, but red being, it is quite eye-catching, but it's not. I wanted just like a dusty, darker red, where she's got a bit, but it's not near her face, and her headscarf is sort of just like it is sort of taupe-ish kind of tan color. But anyway, yeah, lots of this rendering stuff. Once again, let me know if you want me to go quicker through this gray stuff. And I can still make it a 60-minute video, but everything is just sped up 1:1 on all of these. So if there's stuff that people would prefer to see drawn out, whether like maybe it's sketching or whatever, I don't know, just let me know. But yeah, actually, never mind, forget it. And then for the this book here, it's not for. I don't think it's for a while until I do too much detail. I think I sort of deal with it mostly near the end. But I picture her, since she lives in a desert sort of place, and it's books and not scrolls. I figure a neat way to sort of hint at that is having a book where the openings around where the pages are, basically anywhere but the cover and spine is sort of sheathed in this sort of leather stuff, just to kind of keep like dust and sand out of the books, and it's sort of sealed up, and it sort of keeps them as a brick. But I mean, you don't want to cover the book's cover. It's like, it's kind of, it's sort of like, it'd be like a cultural thing where it's like you can still see the cover of the book, you can tell what book it is, and you can still see like the fancy ornate cover of the book, but it's not going to get too damaged by all the weather. The problem with fabric without reference is that there's always something you can do on it. There's always some other extra little detail that you can put in. And that drives me crazy. But that's one thing that I've learned and I've been working towards when painting. Just like one thing I'm trying to always keep my eye open for is how do you depict a material with as few strokes as possible. I don't often chase after it, but I'm always trying to think of it because I'm lazy. So I've mentioned many times that you should be able to describe visually any material with 3 colors, with 4 at maximum. So usually that breaks down with mid-tone, darker tone, and a light tone. Basically, what's the local color, the real color, and then So my brain is just skipping a beat because I'm trying to remember what the term for the local color, the true color of the thing. It keeps trying to think albumin, but that's part of an egg. It's on the tip of my brain. Oh well. And then it's like, and then there's the shadow where the light isn't hitting, and then it could be, the fourth color could be like an ambient lighting, like where lighting is bouncing off of something else. Like if she had like, if you're outdoors at a red table and you have your hand above the table, you can see the underside of your hand is red, that kind of thing. All those things, and how stark the shadows are. Even that sort of line has a lot to say about what the shape is, what the material is, and how things summarize. I don't know. I'm gonna actually put this idea on hold. I charged into it too soon, but I think this is something where I would need a whole video where I'm actually drawing stuff and trying stuff out to try to explain it. It has to do even with sort of doing a painterly style in general. There's something a video I've been meaning to do about, but sort of being able to help somebody break into the break free of relying on line art and being able to do something a bit more painterly, and sort of thinking of the natural relationship between line and paint dab, and sort of there's a realm where they're the exact same thing, and then once you can sort of pass between those two planes, you can start being a person who does painterly stuff. Man, I'm zonked. I've had pretty nasty cold. 2 colds really close together, and this one is just ending, but definitely wearying. So thanks for hanging in there with me. And I got lozenges though. I'm off the Fisherman's Friends. They hurt my teeth now. I got Halls, but it doesn't seem to be working too much. My throat's so dry. But okay. What else can I say about the design, color scheme, and everything? Even red, it's a beautiful color. It's fetching. But even just, I felt like doing something kind of girly. Purplish. I mean, right now they're largely starting off brown, as far as like the sort of the under fabric, but something that's essentially just red and purple, and then with like a pinkish look to the headscarf, even though it is sort of a more tan and drabby, dull thing. I just felt that'd be appropriate. Even with a lot of the reference that Sierra included, there's a high femininity quality to everything, and I wanted to make sure that I included that. I mean, even being like a feline character, and big eyes and pink kitten nose, is definitely a girly sort of character, and I felt like putting my weight on that. Although I did have some questions, I forgot. I did have some other questions for her description, where I was curious about what kind of fur, what's the fur layout on the body, and the tail and everything, because I was looking at her in my brain, and I wasn't sure how well you could have like a cattail without hair on it, and I was worried that she would look kind of rattish. But yeah, so anyway, she I was also curious. She had 2 daggers in total, 1 on each ankle. She actually doesn't have a bunch of fur because of the mingling with other races. So for that main part, there is fur on her ears, tail, and a line down her spine connecting the two. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness gracious. So there is fur on her tail. How the heck did I miss these? Oh my goodness, this is a betrayal. This is absolutely shameful. Hold on, I just gotta write this stuff down. Fur on the tail, there was after all. Oh. I forgot that Oh, okay. Anyway, sorry. So, fur on the tail. And then the blue ring. Okay, blue ring. Get back on track. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, Sarah. Okay, I'm going to make that right. I'm going to get that updated art to you. Now. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm back. So yeah, at least I got the hair on the ears. I've even noticed getting older. I've got hair on my ears now too. So I put the hair on her ear where the hair on my ears grow, and my barber trims it with the clippers, which isn't too bad. But I actually wouldn't mind seeing how long it can get. And then I felt having the fuzz, the peach fuzz on the cheek would be good. It's very common with humans to have there's like this light layer of peach fuzz on the cheek. But I figure with her being a hybridized cat creature thing that it'd be fine to include to sort of ramp that up a little bit. Seemed perfectly feasible to me. It kind of goes with the animalistic thing, I guess, but with extra hair. Even though I forgot the hair on the tail. Oh my goodness. I'm not going to be able to get over that. This is the last time that I forget something on a character. That is it. And if I do in the future, I will lie about it next time. That's for sure. Although one thing when I was doing this character that I got totally wrong is when it came to when I was starting to think about the colors of the eyes. Sierra described them as being a sapphire blue, and in my brain, when I think of sapphire, the only time that sapphire ever comes up, I'm not even a heavy drinker at all. Like I drink very little, come to think of it, but is Bombay Sapphire, where it's the I think it's gin, but it's like a bright turquoise. And so initially I was thinking of it being that color. And then I looked up sapphires for reference, and it turns out that it's like a cobalt blue. But you can see here when I did the underlighting, it's still kind of that, I pushed it towards that turquoise. I think it works good, and it sort of reminds me of like a blue morpho, which is a type of butterfly. Actually, no. Blue morpho is a moth, I think. All right, hold on. No, it is a butterfly. Yeah, blue morpho butterfly. It has this just incredible iridescent array of blues on its wings. On the other side, they're just sort of brown and look sort of mothish. But yeah, it's like you'll want to avoid. I mean, of course, depending on the material. But avoiding ever just lightening something with white, just pure white by itself, and even avoiding shading something with just straight black. There are very few particular ways or places and times when that's the right sort of way to adjust colors for value. When I think of it, the closest thing I can ever think of is just like outdoors with a cloudy sky, with really diffuse gray sky lighting. But I mean, you can get more technical and sort of more realistic as you get more comfortable with it. But when you're painting, if you're new to painting and everything, whenever you lighten something, like if you're painting like or whatever color is the base color, then when you lighten it, shift the hue as well slightly, or as much as you want. It doesn't have to change a lot. Think about like where the light is coming from. Is it a candle? Put a little orange in there. If it's the sky, put a little blue in there, that sort of thing. If they're standing in a grass field on a sunny day, give the shadows a little bit of green the closer they get to the ground, and a little bit of blue the further away they get from the ground, that sort of thing. That's for the shadows. That should make sense. So even if you're... Like, I didn't even realize that until one day when I was about I was about 15, and I was eating a burger at a restaurant, and I looked across the street, and it was wintertime. I think being wintertime kind of helped because there was snow on the ground, and it helped with the color and everything. But I was looking at a building, and I noticed that the shadow from the roof of the building on its wall was actually blue, and it was like the same color as the sky almost. And it was then that I kind of realized that the sky itself was a light source, where the brightest light, the sun, had been blocked out, and that light just was not hitting it at all directly. But with all the light being scattered through the atmosphere, it was bouncing in every direction, and then that stuff could still come from another direction and bounce off the wall and sort of tint it for my eye, for lack of I know that's not the technical explanation, but it's sort of a representation of what is going on. And then that sort of made me start thinking of light as a physical object that sort of moved and mixed and interacted with things that I would typically consider physical objects, I guess you could say. Where there was something that had properties, something that had behavior, something that could then be predicted and that could therefore be controlled or tamed. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, seeing light as something that works with objects rather than, I don't know what other sort of ways there are to think about light, but yeah, taking up the properties of its environment, it's important to be aware of. But again, I mean, this is something where even though I'm rambling and I'm confusing and whatever, still lives are going to help with that sort of stuff, with getting a sense of what light is doing, how the proximity or the intensity or the direction of light is going to change the way a shadow falls on an object or is cast by an object. Looking at how the different sort of angles and lumps or swoops or curves and the size of wrinkles on fabric can change how thick it looks to you or what have you, and this all the variables that all these different things can have. Doing still lives is just going to make everything make sense. So here's sort of I wanted it to look like an important, significant book. I was inspired by, I don't know what if it was a specific book or not, but I was, the only time I've ever left the continent, I was in Europe, in Italy, and I was at the Vatican, and I remember seeing this really big-ass book at the Vatican, and it had like this metallic, it might have been silver or iron or pewter or what have you, but it was just this really ornately carved book, and it was beautiful. I think it was probably a Bible, but I thought in this case it would be nice to maybe have like that sort of it's carved, but in this case I wasn't thinking of a fancier material. I was thinking more like, like it's pewter. Who knows, it might even be lead. They might not know that lead is dangerous, and you can handle lead for a while without getting too much trouble. Or it's metallic, it's carved, it's significant, but it's not a material that's super pricey. It's affordable. So we got the leather cover and then the thread that you can tie around it to keep it snug and keep it from flopping around too much. And then there's a leather strip going down the spine as well, just for comfort. And then even doing the leather corners of the book where people may have held it or it's bumped against things, just rubbing it a little bit, giving a little bit of dirt, but then also or like stain, maybe from the oil in people's hands or whatever, it's dirt or mud or wear, but then also giving a little bit of a sheen because it's been worn smooth and sort of rounded out, and just from age, trying to put some age on stuff. So even though I totally bungled the tail, I did at least remember to include the tail. In this case, this has actually been one thing that's been nice is doing these sort of afterthought notes, or they're not afterthoughts, but scribbling in the stuff that I know is going to be on outside of the frame, because they're going to take resolving, And I'm gonna like to take my time and on something. They usually these sorts of things are the stuff that's gonna have a finicky silhouette anyway, where I'm gonna need to explore and figure it out as I go. And I'd much rather commit to a frame early on and get going, and then just do this later on over top than worry about it too early. So it's actually been kind of nice just taking a light color, putting in a quick little line or shape or dab where I know that something's got to be, and then coming back later and just fleshing it out. In this case, one thing that I've been doing, and it happens a lot when I'm painting, is just using a hard-edged brush with no opacity and defining the shape and the silhouette and everything with that, just make a nice hard edge around everything. And then making new layers, even just thinking about starting one new layer on top of that and set it to clipping mask. You can do that by right-clicking on it, create clipping mask, or when you create the new layer, there's a little checkbox, and you check that box. I don't remember the wording right beside it, but it's the only checkbox. You can click that, and that'll make it so that whatever you do on that layer that you just made, I just had a threatening pop-up on my computer show up about how my computer is being slowed down, whatever. So then rendering it all on that new layer, so you can, it's sort of like the opposite of the frame, where rather than a layer on top of everything containing it, and you're basically working on a layer where the layer below it is containing it, where it's trapping everything to that layer. It can't leave the silhouette of that. It's been a nice way to work. I'm doing the same thing with the tail, putting it back in, making sure it's not clipping through stuff. I bet you I did know that it needed fur, but then I just panicked or I forgot. I definitely would. I forgot. Maybe I was just rushing, or I just forgot. I'm gonna make it right though. Don't you worry. Trying out different stuff, different shapes, trying to get a flow. You don't want it looking too ratish or too monkeyish. I mean, cat's tails are definitely very flexible and they can take many shapes, but they're not like an octopus tentacle. They're not like prehensile, and that could change the nature of it. I mean, even here, I remember being sort of thinking of, I know I had some sort of, now that I'm starting to recognize it, but I can't. But yeah, with it being bald, it's definitely much more rodent-y. Very much feels much more mousy or ratish, and then of course that has to change. But yeah, such a strange things have happened. Another thing too, just a little bit of sort of fancier material on the shoulder pads. I was going for some sort of actually I don't know what material that would be called. Something that has a little bit of two-tone, something velvet related. Oh, excuse me. I don't think it's crushed velvet. I don't know what that is, actually. I know what velvet is, but crushed velvet I'm not exactly sure. Sometimes it is okay to recognize something without knowing what it's called. That is allowed. And then rim lighting. Rim lighting is valuable and fun. Although sometimes it's hard to draw the line between if it's too simple or too complicated. Because if it gets too complicated, then you got to go start rendering everything else. Okay, anyway, barring two details, this was Ariel, or Bookie, for Sierra, and so happy she won. I'm eager to make the corrections needed. I don't think I'll be able to apologize enough. At least I've got lots of apologies recorded and online for eternity. Hopefully that's enough. This is for the free weekly character art lottery held on Twitter from, it's on every Sunday and Monday, anytime before Tuesday. for your free. I'll draw your D&D RPG character free of charge, just like this, if you win. Anyway, this was a good challenge. Learned a lot from doing this. Learned to take my own advice, even sometimes I'm correct. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Hope it helped.